Imagine this: the first rays of dawn bleed across the endless dunes of the Taklamakan Desert, painting the red sands in fire and shadow. Inside a half-buried caravanserai, hundreds of weary travelers stir awake: merchants, pilgrims, soldiers, spies. Among them lies a man who knows that this sunrise could be his last. His name, at least for today, is Mahmud al-Samarkandi, but his robes hide more than trade goods. Tucked into secret seams and false pockets are identities, allegiances, and secrets worth killing for. To most, he's a Sogdian merchant, one of those mysterious figures who bridged empires when the world was vast and perilous. In truth, he is something far more dangerous: part trader, part smuggler, part spy. This morning we'll unravel the hidden truth of the Silk Road, not the romantic tale of camels laden with silk and spices, but the brutal reality of espionage, betrayal, and survival. For along these routes, fortunes were built, empires rose, and men like Mahmud gambled daily with their lives. As the caravanserai stirs to life with the mingling echoes of Christian hymns, Buddhist chants, and Islamic prayers, Mahmud discovers that 3 fellow travelers have vanished without a trace. Their goods remain untouched, something no true merchant would ever abandon. Which means only one thing: danger walks the sands with them, closer than anyone realizes. And so begins a day that will test every skill Mahmud has learned in 2 decades of crossing deserts, deceiving rivals, and surviving ambushes. Because on the Silk Road, when merchants flee without their cargo, the wise don't ask why, they prepare for blood. The caravanserai of Khotan stirs to life like a great beast emerging from slumber. Built from mud bricks that have absorbed the conversations of 1,000 travelers, its walls seem to whisper the secrets of ages past. Mahmud rises from his sleeping mat, immediately alert to the subtle sounds that separate a normal morning from one that might end in bloodshed. The absence of the 3 merchants haunts the air like an unspoken warning. Their sleeping spaces, carefully positioned near the main gate, now lie empty, except for scattered straw and a few deliberately abandoned copper coins. Too few to represent real loss, too many to be accidental. It's a message, and Mahmud reads it with the expertise of a man who has survived by understanding such signs. He moves through his morning ritual with practiced efficiency, but every gesture carries deeper meaning. The small mirror of polished bronze isn't just for grooming. Its surface reflects the activities behind him, while he appears focused on his appearance. The way he folds his sleeping mat creates a specific pattern that signals to other Sogdian merchants in the caravan. Even his choice of which boot to put on first sends a coded message to those who know how to read it. The reality of Silk Road commerce wasn't the romantic adventure often imagined. It was a business built on paranoia, where survival depended on reading the intentions of fellow travelers as carefully as reading the terrain ahead. Mahmud learned this lesson during his first journey 20 years ago, when he witnessed an entire caravan massacred because someone failed to recognize the warning signs of an impending betrayal. As he carefully examines his merchandise in the pre-dawn darkness, running his hands over familiar textures and weights, Mahmud's mind calculates risk with mathematical precision. Each bolt of silk represents 3 months of a craftsman's labor. Each jade piece required negotiations with miners who risked their lives in unstable mountain tunnels. But the real value isn't in the goods themselves. It's in the information they carry. Woven into the silk patterns are coded messages from Chinese court officials to their counterparts in Persia. The jade pieces contain tiny scrolls hidden in hollow compartments, carrying intelligence about troop movements and political alliances. Even the ceramic vessels serve dual purposes, their decorative patterns encoding everything from safe house locations to the identities of reliable money changers. This morning's inspection reveals something deeply troubling. 3 of his most valuable pieces show signs of tampering. Someone has accessed his cargo during the night with skills that rival his own. The seals appear intact to casual observation, but Mahmud's trained fingers detect the minute differences that indicate expert interference. Whoever examined his goods possessed knowledge that only a few dozen people in the entire world should have. The implications send ice through his veins. The Sogdian merchant network maintained its dominance through information asymmetry. Their coded communication systems, developed over centuries, allowed them to coordinate activities across continents. If that security had been compromised, it meant either betrayal from within their ranks or infiltration by agents sophisticated enough to crack their most protected secrets. Mahmud begins implementing emergency protocols learned during his apprenticeship under his uncle, a man who had survived the collapse of the Western Turkic Khaganate by anticipating political shifts before they became obvious. First, he rearranges his cargo to create false priorities, making his most sensitive materials appear worthless while elevating decoy items to positions of apparent importance. The process requires delicate manipulation of the caravan's social dynamics. Other merchants watch each other constantly, looking for signs of unusual wealth or dangerous cargo that might attract unwanted attention. Mahmud must balance appearing prosperous, enough to justify his position in the caravan, while avoiding the appearance of carrying anything worth robbing or killing for. As dawn light begins filtering through the caravan's rise-high windows, casting geometric shadows across the courtyard, Mahmud notices something that makes his merchant's instincts scream warnings. The horses are wrong. Not sick or mistreated, but wrong in ways that suggest deliberate preparation for something other than normal travel. Their shoes show wear patterns inconsistent with the routes they've supposedly traveled. More disturbing, several animals bear the subtle markings used by government agents to identify their mounts. The revelation transforms his understanding of the entire situation. This isn't a random commercial expedition that happened to attract bandits or political attention. Someone has orchestrated their route, their timing, and their company with precision that suggests state-level involvement. The missing merchants weren't fellow traders. They were advanced scouts who had completed their reconnaissance and moved to the next phase of whatever operation is unfolding. But the most chilling realization comes as Mahmud observes the other travelers beginning their morning routines. Several display unconscious behavioral patterns he recognizes from military training. The way they position themselves relative to exits, how they scan their surroundings, even their methods of organizing personal equipment speak of professional conditioning that merchants simply don't receive. As the call to morning prayers mingles different faiths in the courtyard air, Mahmud faces a decision that will determine whether he sees another sunset. He can attempt to quietly separate from the caravan, abandoning a year's investment, but potentially saving his life. Or he can stay, gathering intelligence about this operation while positioning himself to either profit from it or survive its consequences. the choice isn't really between safety and profit. In the world of Silk Road commerce, information is the most valuable commodity, and Mahmud has stumbled upon something that could shift the balance of power between empires. But obtaining that knowledge will require walking directly into a trap whose full dimensions he doesn't yet understand. The morning ritual of organizing a caravan reveals the true complexity of medieval international commerce. What appears to casual observers as simple preparation for travel actually represents an intricate dance of hierarchy, negotiation, and barely contained violence that would make modern corporate politics seem quaint by comparison. Mahmud watches as the caravan bashi, the caravan master, emerges from his private quarters like a general surveying his troops. Ali ibn Rustam commands respect not through official appointment, but through a combination of experience, cunning, and the implicit threat of abandoning troublesome travelers in the middle of nowhere. His morning inspection isn't merely checking supplies and routes. It's a psychological assessment of every person under his authority. The social structure of a Silk Road caravan operated on principles that would be familiar to anyone who understands organized crime. Official hierarchy existed alongside shadow networks of loyalty and obligation that often carried more weight than formal authority. Mahmud observes these dynamics with the practiced eye of someone who has learned to read human nature as carefully as he reads account ledgers. The caravan bashi's first conversation of the morning is with the head guide, a Turkic nomad whose knowledge of desert routes represents generations of accumulated survival wisdom. But their discussion, conducted in deliberately casual tones while examining water supplies, actually concerns the three missing merchants and the military preparations Mahmud has noticed. Their body language suggests familiarity that extends beyond professional relationship. Surrounding them, other travelers begin the complex negotiations that determine daily survival: water allocation, guard duties, position in the marching order. Each decision carries life or death implications disguised as mundane logistics. Mahmud notes how certain individuals seem exempt from normal discussion, their preferences accepted without the usual merchant's haggling that characterizes every other interaction. The ethnic composition of their group reflects the true nature of Silk Road commerce. Chinese officials traveling incognito, Persian diplomats on unofficial missions, Arab scholars gathering intelligence for distant patrons, and Sogdian merchants like Mahmud, who served as the connective tissue binding this unlikely assembly together. Each group maintains careful distance from the others, while simultaneously depending on mutual cooperation for survival. But this morning's organization reveals something that makes Mahmud's trained instincts scream warnings. The normal process of negotiating travel order has been subtly predetermined. Certain merchants find themselves assigned to specific positions within the caravan through what appears to be natural discussion but shows signs of careful orchestration. Someone has planned not just their route, but their exact formation during travel. The implications are staggering. Caravan organization typically emerged from organic negotiation between travelers with competing interests. Merchants jockeyed for safer positions in the middle, while guards demanded premium placement for their protection services. The fact that today's arrangement appears predetermined suggests coordination at levels that individual travelers shouldn't possess. Mahmud engages in the ritualized morning bargaining with particular attention to reading the other participants. A merchant's negotiating style reveals everything from their true financial situation to their cultural background and potential political affiliations. This morning, too many of his fellow travelers display negotiating patterns that suggest training rather than natural commercial experience. The water negotiations prove especially revealing. In normal circumstances, water allocation represents the most critical and contentious aspect of caravan organization. Desert survival depends on precise calculation of consumption rates, route demands, and emergency reserves. This morning, those discussions proceed with suspicious smoothness, as if quantities and distribution have been predetermined by someone with authority over the entire group. As the sun climbs higher, casting harsh shadows across the courtyard, Mahmud notices something that confirms his worst suspicions. The animal handlers are organizing packloads with military precision rather than commercial efficiency. Goods are being arranged not for optimal transport or easy access during normal travel, but for rapid redistribution if the caravan needs to split into smaller groups quickly. The realization transforms his understanding of their situation. This isn't a commercial expedition that has attracted government attention. It's a government operation disguised as commercial activity. The question becomes whether Mahmud and other genuine merchants are unwitting cover for the operation, or if they've been deliberately recruited as expendable assets. His own position in the emerging hierarchy provides disturbing clues. Despite his obvious expertise and valuable cargo, he finds himself assigned to a position that offers maximum visibility to other travelers, while providing minimum protection if violence erupts. It's either a position of honor for a respected merchant, or a target designation for someone whose elimination has been planned. The morning's final revelation comes as the caravan bashi announces their route modification. Technical problems with wells along their planned path require a detour through territory that Mahmud knows is controlled by particularly aggressive bandit groups. The alternative route also happens to pass through several locations that serve as meeting points for various intelligence networks. As the caravan prepares to depart, with animals loaded and travelers taking their assigned positions, Mahmud realizes he's witnessing the opening moves of an operation whose full scope extends far beyond simple commerce. The Silk Road has always served multiple masters: trade, diplomacy, espionage, and war. But today's journey promises to reveal just how seamlessly those functions can be integrated. But the most unsettling aspect of the morning's revelations isn't the presence of a covert operation. It's the professional competence with which it's being executed. Someone has invested serious resources in creating this elaborate deception, suggesting stakes that extend far beyond normal commercial or even political concerns. As the caravan lurches into motion, the true nature of Silk Road commerce begins to reveal itself through the carefully guarded secrets each merchant carries. Mahmud's cargo represents just one layer of a complex ecosystem where information, technology, and forbidden knowledge flow alongside silk and spices, creating fortunes that dwarf the official trade in luxury goods. The silk bolts that form the visible foundation of his merchandise tell their own fascinating story. Each piece carries markers invisible to casual inspection, but clearly readable to those with appropriate knowledge. The thread count varies in specific patterns that indicate not just quality and origin, but encoded information about political situations in their production regions. A barely perceptible variation in weave density signals whether a particular Chinese province is experiencing civil unrest, while specific dye patterns indicate the status of relationships between various court factions. But silk serves another, more dangerous purpose in the hidden economy of the Silk Road. Certain bolts contain threads made from materials that shouldn't exist according to official Chinese records. These represent samples of experimental techniques developed in imperial workshops, stolen by craftsmen willing to risk execution for the promise of wealth beyond imagination. A single thread containing revolutionary silk-making secrets could fund a merchant's retirement, while simultaneously shifting the balance of textile production across continents. Mahmud's jade collection presents even more complex moral territories. Each piece represents not just artistic achievement, but often grave robbery and cultural theft on scales that would shock modern sensibilities. The most valuable items come from ancient burial sites in regions where local rulers prohibit such excavation under penalty of death. Entire teams of skilled miners and archaeologists risk their lives to supply the international market for artifacts that carry both monetary and spiritual significance. Hidden within the jade collection are pieces that serve purposes far beyond decoration or trade. Certain ornaments contain hollow chambers precisely carved to hold coded messages, small quantities of precious medicines, or samples of valuable materials like mercury and rare earth minerals. The craftsmanship required to create these concealed storage systems represents technological sophistication that challenges assumptions about medieval capabilities. The ceramic pieces in Mahmud's cargo showcase the most sophisticated information encoding systems of the ancient world. What appear to be decorative patterns actually represent detailed maps, astronomical calculations, and mathematical formulas. A single vase might contain the complete plans for siege engines, architectural techniques, or agricultural innovations that could transform entire civilizations. The potters who create these pieces often work under armed guard, their knowledge too valuable and dangerous to risk exposure. But the morning's inspection revealed something that makes Mahmud's blood run cold. Several ceramic pieces show signs of having been examined with tools and techniques that should be unknown outside of specific Chinese imperial workshops. Someone in their caravan possesses knowledge and equipment that suggests access to state secrets at the highest levels. The implications extend far beyond simple espionage. Among his officially declared goods, Mahmud carries samples of Chinese paper, a technology so revolutionary that several empires have declared its export a capital offense. Each sheet represents months of experimentation by craftsmen who risk execution if their activities are discovered. But paper serves purposes beyond simple writing material. It can carry chemical compounds that reveal hidden messages when treated with specific solutions, or contain threads that form maps when sheets are assembled in proper sequence. The spice collection presents its own moral complexities, while cinnamon and pepper represent the legitimate luxury trade that drives public perception of Silk Road commerce. Other substances in Mahmud's carefully sealed containers serve darker purposes. Certain exotic plants provide ingredients for poisons subtle enough to eliminate targets without detection, while others offer medical treatments so effective they border on seeming magical to societies without access to advanced knowledge. Hidden among the spices are samples of materials that shouldn't exist according to official records. Experimental alloys developed in Chinese metallurgy workshops, new chemical compounds created by Persian alchemists, botanical specimens from regions that maps claim are uninhabitable. Each sample represents knowledge that could shift technological development by decades if it reaches the right hands. But this morning's most disturbing discovery involves items that weren't in his cargo when he loaded it 3 days ago. Someone has added materials to his collection with such skill that detection required expert examination. The additions include coded documents that appear to be correspondence between various intelligence networks, suggesting his cargo has been deliberately compromised to serve purposes he doesn't understand. The revelation forces Mahmud to confront the possibility that his entire commercial operation serves as unwitting cover for activities that could trigger wars between empires. The materials added to his cargo represent intelligence too sensitive for normal diplomatic channels, suggesting he's become an unwitting courier for information that powerful individuals are willing to kill to protect or obtain. As the caravan settles into traveling rhythm, with each merchant lost in private calculations of risk and profit, Mahmud realizes his situation has shifted from commercial adventure to survival challenge. The knowledge he carries, both intentionally and unknowingly, makes him valuable enough to capture and dangerous enough to eliminate. The question becomes whether he can navigate the competing interests surrounding his cargo long enough to profit from the situation rather than becoming its victim. The sun climbs higher, promising a day of revelations that will test everything he's learned about the hidden realities of international commerce. But first, he must survive the immediate challenges posed by traveling companions whose true purposes remain as carefully concealed as the secrets woven into his silk and hidden within his jade. The Taklamakan desert earned its name from the Turkic phrase meaning place of no return. And as the caravan ventures deeper into its merciless embrace, Mahmud begins to understand why seasoned travelers speak of this route in whispers reserved for cursing their enemies. The morning sun, already punishing despite the early hour, reveals a landscape designed by hostile gods to test human endurance beyond reasonable limits. But the environmental challenges, brutal as they are, pale beside the human threats that make each mile a gamble with death. Mahmud observes the subtle changes in his fellow travelers' behavior as they enter territory where the normal rules of civilization cease to apply. Conversations become more guarded, weapons are checked more frequently, and eyes constantly scan the horizon for signs of the bandit groups that have turned robbery into a professional enterprise. The bandits of the Silk Road aren't desperate criminals driven by poverty. They're sophisticated military organizations with intelligence networks that would impress imperial courts. The most successful groups maintain detailed records of caravan movements, cargo manifests, and even the personal histories of regular merchants. They know which travelers carry valuable goods, which ones have wealthy families willing to pay ransoms, and which ones possess knowledge worth more than gold. Mahmud's experience with bandit encounters has taught him to read the warning signs that inexperienced travelers miss. The absence of bird sounds in areas where they should be abundant. Unusual patterns in the sand that suggest recent passage of large groups. And most tellingly, the behavior of local nomads who appear to be grazing animals but are actually conducting surveillance for organized criminal enterprises. This morning brings multiple signs that their route has been compromised. The caravan Bosch's decision to alter their path ostensibly addresses water shortages, but the new route passes through 3 known ambush sites where bandits have constructed elaborate kill zones using natural terrain features. Either their leader is incompetent, which his reputation suggests he isn't, or he's deliberately guiding them into danger for reasons that extend beyond normal commercial concerns. The most sophisticated bandit operations employ tactics that blur the line between robbery and warfare. They use coordinated attacks involving multiple groups, diversionary assaults to scatter caravans into smaller, more vulnerable units, and psychological warfare designed to break the will of victims before physical violence becomes necessary. Some groups even maintain diplomatic relationships with various governments, paying taxes in exchange for intelligence about particularly valuable targets. But bandits represent only one category of human threat on the Silk Road. The desert also hosts various intelligence operatives working for competing empires, each seeking to intercept communications, sabotage rival operations, or recruit valuable assets for their own purposes. The most skilled agents pose as merchants, guards, or even bandits, while pursuing objectives that individual travelers rarely understand until it's too late. Mahmoud notices his fellow travelers displaying awareness that suggests prior knowledge of specific threats along their route. Several merchants have repositioned their most valuable goods in ways that indicate preparation for rapid abandonment if escape becomes necessary. Others have altered their personal weapons arrangements, shifting from defensive configurations to setups that suggest anticipation of organized combat rather than opportunistic robbery. The environmental challenges themselves create additional layers of danger that inexperienced travelers underestimate. Sandstorms in the Taklamakan don't just reduce visibility, they can separate members of a caravan by miles, while disorienting them so completely that reunification becomes impossible. Experienced merchants carry specific signaling devices and follow protocols developed over centuries to prevent such separations from becoming death sentences. Water scarcity creates its own unique perils that extend beyond simple survival needs. Wells along the major routes become focal points for various forms of criminal activity, from simple robbery to elaborate extortion schemes where bandit groups control access to vital resources. Some criminal organizations have even poisoned wells to force caravans into routes where ambushes can be more easily executed. The psychological pressures of desert travel create additional vulnerabilities that sophisticated criminals know how to exploit. Travelers under extreme stress make poor decisions, trust inappropriate people, and fail to recognize dangers that would be obvious under normal circumstances. Bandit groups often follow caravans for days, allowing environmental pressures to weaken their victims' judgment before striking when resistance will be minimal. As the morning progresses and heat begins to affect both animals and humans, Mahmoud observes signs that their specific caravan has attracted attention from multiple threat sources. Dust clouds on the horizon suggest parallel movement by groups that aren't making their presence known, while changes in local wildlife behavior indicate unusual human activity in areas that should be uninhabited. The most unsettling revelation comes through careful observation of the caravan Bashi's communication patterns. Throughout the morning, he's been using hand signals and positioning choices that serve as coded messages to unknown recipients. Either he's maintaining contact with allied groups positioned along their route, or he's providing targeting information to hostile forces preparing to intercept them. The convergence of environmental stress, criminal threats, and covert operations creates a situation where survival depends on reading subtle cues and making split-second decisions based on incomplete information. Mahmud realizes that the day's true test won't be enduring heat or avoiding obvious dangers. It will be navigating a complex web of competing interests, where the wrong choice could result in outcomes far worse than simple death. As storm clouds begin building on the horizon, promising relief from heat but threatening new forms of danger, Mahmud prepares for revelations that will test everything he's learned about survival in a world where commerce, politics, and warfare blend into a single, deadly game. The midday halt occurs at a well that has served travelers for over 3 centuries, its stone rim worn smooth by countless hands desperate for life-sustaining water. But today, this ancient meeting place hosts encounters that will reshape Mahmud's understanding of how knowledge, power, and secrets flow along the arteries of medieval globalization. The first unusual traveler appears as if materialized from the shimmer of desert heat. A Buddhist monk, his saffron robes bleached nearly white by sun and sand, approaches with the measured pace of someone who has learned that haste in the desert means death. But Mahmud's trained merchant eye immediately recognizes that this holy man carries himself with the fluid grace of someone skilled in combat, while his seemingly empty travel pack shows the telltale weight distribution of concealed weapons. Brother Jishnu, as he introduces himself, speaks perfect Chinese, fluent Persian, and adequate Sogdian, suggesting education that extends far beyond monastery walls. His conversation reveals knowledge of political developments in regions he claims never to have visited, while his questions about Mahmud's cargo demonstrate understanding of commercial codes that religious teachers shouldn't possess. This isn't a simple pilgrim seeking enlightenment. It's an agent using religious cover for intelligence gathering on an international scale. The monk's presence creates ripples of recognition among other travelers that confirm Mahmud's suspicions about his fellow merchants. Several individuals who have maintained careful anonymity suddenly display familiarity with Buddhist customs that suggests prior contact with similar operatives. The caravan isn't just a commercial expedition. It's a convergence point for intelligence networks that span continents. Brother Jishnu's most intriguing revelation comes through seemingly casual conversation about monastery libraries. He describes manuscript collections that contain not just religious texts, but detailed records, political relationships, and technological innovations gathered by traveling monks over centuries. Buddhist monasteries, he implies, serve as repositories for intelligence that would make imperial courts envious, while maintaining neutrality that allows them access to information forbidden to official diplomatic channels. The second encounter proves even more extraordinary. A woman approaches the well-dressed as a male Persian merchant, her disguise so perfect that only someone with Mahmud's experience in reading human deception would detect the careful attention to masculine behavioral patterns that betrays her true identity. But what makes this encounter truly remarkable isn't the gender deception. It's the recognition that dawns as she speaks. Rahela of Nishaper, one of the most successful merchants on the western routes, officially died in a bandit attack 3 years ago. Her appearance at this remote well suggests either that her death was staged or that someone has assumed her identity. with access to knowledge that only she should possess. Either possibility carries implications that make Mahmud's mind race with opportunities and dangers. Her conversation reveals that the supposedly dead merchant has been operating under assumed identities across multiple routes, gathering intelligence about political developments while building a financial network that extends from Constantinople to Kashgar. She's created a shadow empire based on information arbitrage, where knowledge about political developments in one region becomes profitable trading opportunities in another. Rahela's most disturbing revelation concerns the true purpose of their current caravan. She describes a conspiracy involving Chinese court officials, Persian diplomats, and Arab merchant princes, working together to manipulate trade routes in ways that will shift the balance of power between major empires. Their caravan carries not just goods, but coded instructions for coordinated actions that will trigger conflicts designed to benefit specific commercial interests. The third extraordinary encounter arrives in the form of a group of Radhanite Jewish merchants whose presence in this remote location defies explanation. These traders, known for operating the longest and most profitable trade routes in the medieval world, typically avoid the dangerous Central Asian passages in favor of safer maritime and northern land routes. Their appearance suggests either desperation or the pursuit of opportunities, so valuable that extraordinary risks become acceptable. Their leader, Rabbi Isaac ben Abraham, engages Mahmud in conversations that reveal knowledge of Sogdian commercial codes, Chinese court politics, and Persian diplomatic practices that suggests access to intelligence sources at the highest levels of multiple governments. The Radhanites, he implies, serve as neutral parties in negotiations between empires, while maintaining their own agenda that transcends the political boundaries that constrain other merchants. The rabbi's most significant revelation concerns a network of safe houses and financial institutions that operates parallel to official banking systems. This shadow economy allows merchants to transfer wealth across vast distances without physical transport of valuable goods, while providing financing for operations that governments prefer to keep off official records. Their caravan, he suggests, carries authorization codes for accessing this network. As these encounters unfold around the ancient well, Mahmud realizes he's witnessing a convergence of intelligence networks, shadow financial systems, and covert political operations that reveals the true complexity of medieval international relations. The Silk Road serves not just as a trade route, but as the communication backbone for a global system of espionage and influence that operates behind the facade of commercial activity. The most unsettling aspect of these encounters isn't the revelation of conspiracy, but the professional competence with which multiple intelligence operations have been coordinated to intersect at this specific location. Someone with access to information from all these networks has orchestrated today's meetings for purposes that individual participants may not fully understand. As the caravan prepares to resume travel with new passengers whose true identities and purposes remain carefully concealed, Mahmud faces the realization that he's no longer simply a merchant carrying goods between markets. He's become a participant in operations that could reshape the political landscape of the medieval world, whether he chooses to be or not. But the day's encounters have also revealed opportunities that could establish his family's commercial dominance for generations, if he can navigate the dangers without becoming their victim. The question becomes whether the potential rewards justify the risks of deeper involvement in games where the stakes extend far beyond individual profit or loss. As the caravan resumes its journey through the afternoon heat, the true sophistication of medieval international commerce begins revealing itself through the subtle interactions between merchants who have abandoned the pretense of simple trade. Mahmud observes negotiations that employ codes developed over centuries, financial instruments that anticipate modern banking by hundreds of years, and information networks that rival contemporary intelligence services in their reach and sophistication. The first revelation comes through watching Rabbi Isaac negotiate with Brother Jishnu over what appears to be a simple exchange of silver for spiritual services. But Mahmud's trained eye recognizes the transaction as something far more complex. The transfer of authorization codes that will allow the monk to access Radhanite financial networks across multiple continents. The silver coins contain markings invisible to casual inspection, while the spiritual services include access to monastery communication systems that can relay messages faster than any official diplomatic channels. This shadow banking system operates on principles that won't be formally recognized by European institutions for another 5 centuries. Letters of credit allow merchants to deposit wealth in one location and withdraw equivalent value thousands of miles away, while complex insurance arrangements protect against losses from banditry, political upheaval, and natural disasters. The sophistication of these instruments suggests mathematical understanding that challenges assumptions about medieval capabilities. Mahmud's own participation in these systems reveals the true extent of Sogdian commercial dominance. His family maintains relationships with financial houses in over 30 cities, allowing him to conduct transactions that span continents without physically transporting large quantities of precious metals. The codes sewn into his clothing and engraved on his personal effects serve as authorization for accessing wealth, deposited years ago in preparation for opportunities that are only now becoming apparent. But the afternoon's most significant revelation concerns the information trading that occurs parallel to normal commercial exchange. Merchants maintain detailed intelligence about political developments, military movements, and economic conditions across vast territories, selling this knowledge to interested parties at prices that often exceed the value of their physical goods. A single piece of accurate intelligence about imperial succession plans or harvest failures can generate profits that dwarf entire caravans of luxury items. The standardization of this intelligence market reveals organizational capabilities that suggest coordination at levels that individual merchants shouldn't possess. Price lists for different categories of information, quality standards for evaluating intelligence accuracy, and even warranty arrangements for particularly valuable data indicate systematic development that must involve state-level resources masquerading as private commercial activity. Rahala's participation in these discussions exposes the gender dimensions of medieval international commerce that official records rarely acknowledge. Women merchants, while officially restricted in many societies, actually controlled significant portions of long-distance trade through arrangements that allowed them to operate behind male facades while maintaining real authority over financial decisions. Her network of female agents, posing as wives, servants, or religious pilgrims, gathered intelligence that male merchants couldn't access while avoiding the scrutiny that open female participation would attract. The technological aspects of these commercial operations showcase innovations that anticipate later developments by centuries. Coded communication systems employ mathematical principles that won't be formalized until the modern era, while quality control methods for evaluating merchandise demonstrate understanding of chemistry and materials science that challenges historical assumptions about medieval knowledge. The merchants themselves often don't understand the full implications of techniques they've inherited from previous generations. As afternoon shadows lengthen, Mahmud participates in negotiations that reveal the true scope of commercial coordination along the Silk Road routes. Merchants maintain detailed schedules that coordinate the movement of goods, information, and financial instruments across multiple route systems, creating efficiencies that rival modern supply chain management. Price information flows between distant markets with speed that suggests systematic communication networks designed specifically for commercial intelligence. The caravan's own participants represent a carefully assembled collection of specialists whose skills extend far beyond normal mercantile activities. Several individuals possess expertise in evaluating political stability, others specialize in technological intelligence, and some maintain relationships with military organizations that provide both protection and access to restricted information. This isn't a random collection of merchants. It's a professional organization disguised as commercial activity. The most disturbing aspect of these revelations concerns the intersection between commercial networks and covert political operations. Several of his fellow travelers describe assignments that involve destabilizing specific regions to create trading opportunities, while others mention contracts for providing intelligence that will be used in military operations. The line between commerce and warfare has become so blurred that individual merchants may not understand which master they're actually serving. Mahmud's growing understanding of these systems creates both opportunities and obligations that will shape the remainder of his career. Knowledge of shadow banking networks opens possibilities for financial operations that could establish his family among the commercial elite, while awareness of intelligence markets provides access to information that could prevent disasters or enable spectacular profits. But deeper involvement also means increased scrutiny from government agents and criminal organizations that prefer such activities to remain hidden. As evening approaches and the caravan prepares for what may be their most dangerous night, Mahmud realizes that success in medieval international commerce requires skills that have more in common with modern corporate espionage than simple buying and selling. The merchants who survive and prosper are those who master the complex interactions between economics, politics, technologies that characterize the hidden reality of the Silk Road. The question becomes whether he possesses the moral flexibility necessary to prosper in a world where commercial success often depends on enabling activities that individual conscience might find objectionable. The answer will determine not just his financial future, but his survival in a game where the stakes extend far beyond personal wealth. As twilight approaches and the caravan faces its most treacherous passage through the heart of the Taklamakan, Mahmud discovers that survival in this wasteland requires knowledge that transcends normal desert navigation. The techniques employed by their guides draw upon astronomical observations, geological understanding, and mathematical calculations that suggest scientific sophistication carefully guarded by those who control the most dangerous routes. The evening's navigation begins with rituals that appear religious, but actually represent complex scientific procedures. The head guide, Timur Khan, performs observations of star positions using instruments concealed within what appear to be simple prayer implements. His calculations don't just determine direction, they predict wind patterns, temperature changes, and the locations of underground water sources that aren't marked on any official maps. These navigation secrets represent knowledge accumulated over centuries by nomadic peoples who learned to read the desert like a vast text written in sand, stone, and sky. The techniques involve understanding how different geological formations affect wind patterns, how plant growth indicates underground water, and how the behavior of insects and small animals reveals environmental changes that can mean the difference between life and death for a traveling caravan. But tonight's navigation reveals something that makes Mahmud's survival instincts scream warnings. Their route deviates from traditional paths in ways that can't be explained by normal environmental concerns. Timur Khan guides them toward areas that experienced travelers know to be haunted by more than natural dangers, where previous caravans have disappeared under circumstances that suggest human rather than environmental causes. The water management techniques employed by their expedition showcase another level of scientific sophistication that challenges assumptions about medieval capabilities. Each animal's water consumption is calculated based on factors including ambient temperature, humidity levels, and anticipated exertion, while human rations account for individual body weight, age, and medical conditions. The precision suggests mathematical understanding that won't be formalized by European institutions for several centuries. Emergency water sources along their route exist, not through natural occurrence, but through engineering projects that represent massive investments in infrastructure. Hidden cisterns, constructed with techniques that prevent evaporation and contamination, provide strategic reserves that allow caravans to survive passages that would otherwise be impossible. The locations of these installations are guarded more carefully than imperial state secrets. As night deepens and stars emerge in the clear desert sky, Mahmud observes celestial navigation techniques that demonstrate astronomical knowledge rivaling that of the greatest observatories. The guides don't just use stars for direction. They employ complex calculations involving planetary positions, lunar phases, and seasonal variations that allow prediction of weather patterns days in advance. This isn't primitive navigation. It's sophisticated scientific methodology disguised as traditional knowledge. The most disturbing revelation of the night comes through observing the behavior of their animals. The camels and horses display unease that suggests awareness of dangers that human senses haven't detected. Their reactions indicate the presence of large groups of people positioned along their intended route, while their specific behavioral patterns suggest these observers possess enough animals to represent significant military forces rather than normal bandit groups. The psychological challenges of night desert travel create additional layers of danger that inexperienced participants underestimate. The combination of extreme temperature variations, disorienting silence, and vast darkness can trigger mental breakdowns in individuals not prepared for such sensory deprivation. Experienced guides watch for signs of psychological deterioration that could compromise the safety of the entire expedition. Mahmud notices several of his fellow travelers displaying knowledge of desert survival techniques that suggest prior military training rather than commercial experience. Their methods for conserving body heat, managing water consumption, and maintaining alertness during night travel indicate professional preparation that merchants typically don't receive. The caravan includes individuals whose desert experience was acquired through activities other than trade. The night's most significant challenge comes in the form of environmental phenomena that blur the line between natural occurrence and deliberate manipulation. Strange lights appear on the horizon in patterns that suggest signaling rather than natural luminescence, while unusual wind patterns carry sounds that indicate human activity in areas that should be uninhabited. Someone is using the desert environment as a communication medium for coordinating activities that involve their caravan. Ancient legends speak of desert spirits that lure travelers to their death. But Mahmud recognizes these supernatural encounters as sophisticated psychological warfare techniques employed by human adversaries. Mysterious sounds, unexplained lights, and apparently impossible phenomena often result from deliberate manipulation, designed to create fear and confusion that makes victims easier to control or eliminate. The water holes they encounter during the night passage reveal another disturbing pattern. Several show signs of recent human presence that contradicts their supposed remoteness, while others contain substances that suggest deliberate contamination designed to sicken rather than kill. Someone has been preparing this route for their specific passage, creating conditions that will weaken their caravan without triggering immediate suspicion. As the night progresses and exhaustion begins affecting both animals and humans, Mahmud realizes that their desert crossing represents more than simple travel between trading centers. The route has been carefully chosen to provide opportunities for various forms of manipulation, from intelligence gathering to elimination of specific individuals, while maintaining plausible explanations for whatever outcomes occur. The convergence of natural dangers with human threats creates a situation where survival depends on distinguishing between environmental hazards and deliberately created perils. The desert provides perfect cover for activities that would be impossible in populated areas, while its reputation for natural dangers disguises human predation so effectively that victims may never recognize the true source of their destruction. But the night also reveals opportunities for those clever enough to recognize them. The same isolation that creates vulnerability also provides freedom from normal legal and social constraints. In the desert's embrace, fortunes can be redistributed, identities can be eliminated or created, and knowledge can be acquired through methods that civilized society would never tolerate. As dawn approaches and the caravan prepares for what may be their final day of travel, Mahmud faces the realization that the desert crossing has transformed him from observer to participant in operations, whose scope extends far beyond normal commercial concerns. The question becomes whether he can navigate the remaining challenges without losing either his life or his soul to the moral compromises that survival may require. The approach to Samarkand unfolds like a fever dream born from the intersection of wealth, power, and human ambition. As the caravan crests the final ridge overlooking the legendary city, Mahmud beholds a sight that challenges everything he thought he understood about the limits of medieval urban development. But beneath the surface magnificence lies a web of corruption, espionage, and moral decay that makes the desert's honest dangers seem almost refreshing by comparison. The city's outer districts reveal the true cost of Silk Road prosperity. Magnificent merchant palaces stand adjacent to hovels, where the workers who create luxury goods live in conditions that would shame conscientious animal owners. The contrast isn't accidental. It represents a carefully maintained system where the suffering of many funds the extravagance of few, while those in between navigate the narrow space between complicity and victimization. Mahmud's entry into the city requires navigating inspection processes that serve multiple purposes beyond simple customs evaluation. The officials who examine his cargo possess expertise that suggests access to intelligence from across the known world, while their questions reveal knowledge of his personal history that no normal bureaucrat should possess. The inspection isn't just evaluating goods, it's assessing his potential usefulness for activities that extend beyond normal commerce. The legendary bazaars of Samarkand showcase both the pinnacle of medieval commercial sophistication and the moral bankruptcy that unlimited wealth can create. Stalls offer goods that represent the finest achievements of human creativity, alongside others that cater to appetites so depraved that their very existence challenges assumptions about civilized behavior. The same merchants who sell exquisite silk and precious gems also traffic in human lives with the casual efficiency that characterizes any other commodity. Brother Jishnu's connections in the city reveal how religious institutions serve as fronts for intelligence operations that dwarf the capabilities of official government agencies. Monasteries maintain libraries that contain not just spiritual texts, but detailed records of every significant political, military, and commercial development across continents. The information gathered by traveling monks creates a knowledge network that allows prediction of political changes years before they become apparent to conventional observers. The Buddhist compound where they take lodging operates as a neutral meeting ground for representatives of competing empires who conduct negotiations that shape the fate of nations while maintaining official deniability for their governments. Mahmud observes discussions between Chinese court officials and Persian diplomats that suggest coordination on issues ranging from trade route security to military alliance against common threats. The monastery serves as an embassy for empires that officially maintain hostile relationships. Rehala's network in Samarkand exposes the hidden role of women in controlling international commerce through arrangements that circumvent official restrictions while maintaining real power over financial decisions. Her safe houses serve as meeting points for female merchants, diplomats, and intelligence agents who gather information that male networks cannot access, while coordinating activities that shape political developments across multiple regions. The evening's entertainment reveals another layer of the city's hidden purposes. What appears to be simple merchant hospitality actually represents recruitment and evaluation processes for various covert operations. Potential assets are identified through seemingly casual conversation, while their skills, loyalties, and weaknesses are assessed through social interactions designed to reveal character traits that formal interviews could never expose. The palace districts showcase technological achievements that anticipate later developments by centuries, while highlighting the moral costs of unconstrained ambition. Gardens, watered by engineering systems that demonstrate advanced hydraulic knowledge, exist alongside torture. Chambers equipped with devices that represent equally sophisticated understanding of human anatomy applied to inflicting maximum suffering. The same scientific knowledge that creates beauty also enables unprecedented cruelty. Mahmud's meetings with local merchants reveal pricing structures for goods and services that challenge modern assumptions about medieval economic development. Rates for various categories of information, costs for different types of assassination, and fees for manipulating political events in distant regions indicate systematization of activities that most historical accounts ignore or minimize. The shadow economy operates with efficiency that rivals legitimate commerce. The city's financial institutions offer services that won't be formally recognized by European banks for several centuries. Letters of credit can be converted into local currency at rates that account for political risks in different regions, while insurance policies protect against losses from war, political upheaval, and natural disasters with sophistication that suggests actuarial calculations based on extensive historical data. But the night's most disturbing revelations concern the intersection between legitimate governance and criminal enterprise that characterizes power relationships in this international trading hub. Officials who collect taxes for the ruling Khan also coordinate with bandit groups to ensure appropriate distribution of robbery targets, while judges who adjudicate commercial disputes simultaneously operate kidnapping rings that fund their judicial positions through ransoms paid by wealthy merchants. The convergence of representatives from multiple intelligence networks creates opportunities for information arbitrage that could generate fortunes for merchants clever enough to recognize them. Knowledge about political developments in one region becomes valuable trading intelligence in another, while technological innovations discovered in distant lands can be sold to interested parties at prices that dwarf the value of traditional commodities. As midnight approaches and the city's true character emerges from behind its daytime facade, Mahmud realizes that Samarkand represents both the pinnacle of Silk Road civilization and a warning about the moral costs of unlimited wealth and power. The same systems that enable unprecedented prosperity also create conditions where human dignity becomes just another commodity to be bought and sold. The question becomes whether participation in this system represents necessary adaptation to reality or moral compromise that will ultimately corrupt everything it touches. The answer will determine not just his financial success, but the type of person he becomes in pursuit of wealth that may exact costs too terrible to calculate until payment is demanded. But as dawn approaches and new opportunities present themselves through contacts established during the night's revelations, Mahmud faces choices that will define the remainder of his career. The legendary city has shown him possibilities that could establish his family among the commercial elite for generations, if he possesses the moral flexibility to embrace them fully. The morning light filtering through Samarkand's ancient walls illuminates more than just streets and buildings. It reveals the intricate web of deception, loyalty, and betrayal that has been constructed around Mahmud's caravan since their journey began. As he pieces together fragments of conversations, observes patterns in seemingly random encounters, and recognizes connections between apparently unrelated events, a terrifying picture emerges of manipulation that extends far beyond normal commercial or political concerns. The first revelation comes through careful analysis of the timing surrounding their entire expedition. The original delays that forced their departure later than planned, the accidental encounters with various travelers along their route, and even the weather patterns that influenced their path selection show signs of coordination that individual merchants shouldn't possess the resources to achieve. Someone with access to information from multiple intelligence networks has orchestrated their journey for purposes that transcend anything the visible participants understand. Rabbi Isaac's morning prayers provide cover for a conversation that exposes the true scope of the conspiracy surrounding their caravan. The Rodhanite network has been tracking their expedition since before it began, identifying specific individuals whose elimination would benefit certain political factions while ensuring that the blame would fall on bandits or natural causes. Their caravan carries more than goods. It transports individuals marked for death by forces that prefer their enemies to disappear without creating political complications. Brother Jishnu's meditation sessions serve as reconnaissance briefings, where he receives updated intelligence about political developments that will affect their mission's final phases. The monastery networks have identified changes in court politics that require adjustments to original plans, while new opportunities have emerged that could benefit those flexible enough to adapt their objectives. But these opportunities come with costs that may include abandoning traveling companions to protect more valuable assets. Rehala's morning negotiations with local merchants actually represent the final coordination of an operation designed to eliminate the caravan's most dangerous members, while ensuring that valuable cargo reaches its intended recipients. Her network has been providing intelligence about their route, their defenses, and their internal relationships to interests that plan to intercept them during their final approach to their destination. She's not just a fellow merchant, she's the coordinator of their destruction. The caravan Bashi's morning inspection reveals preparations for scenarios that extend far beyond normal travel challenges. Weapons are redistributed among caravan members according to combat capabilities rather than official protection responsibilities, while supplies are organized for rapid abandonment of less valuable goods if immediate escape becomes necessary. These aren't preparations for defending against random bandit attacks. They're tactical arrangements for surviving a coordinated military operation. Mahmud's own position in these developing scenarios becomes clear through careful observation of how other participants interact with him. Certain individuals who maintained friendly relationships throughout their journey now display subtle signs of wariness that suggest changed circumstances. Others show increased attention that indicates either protective concern or targeting assessment. His value as either asset or liability has shifted in ways that affect everyone's calculations about the expedition's probable outcomes. The political dimensions of the conspiracy reveal themselves through intelligence gathered during seemingly casual conversations with various merchants and guides. Chinese court officials seek to eliminate Persian intelligence assets operating along the Silk Road routes, while Persian agents work to sabotage Chinese technological transfers that threaten Persian commercial advantages. Their caravan has been selected as a venue for settling accounts between intelligence networks that span continents. The technological aspects of the plot expose sophistication that challenges assumptions about medieval capabilities. Communication systems allow coordination between groups separated by hundreds of miles, while timing mechanisms ensure that multiple operations occur simultaneously to overwhelm any possible defensive responses. The conspiracy employs resources and expertise that suggest state-level involvement. Financial motivations behind the betrayals reveal the true scale of wealth at stake in these operations. The cargo carried by their caravan represents only a fraction of the total value involved in shifting trade routes, eliminating commercial competitors, and acquiring technological advantages that could influence economic development for generations. Individual fortunes pale beside the strategic implications of controlling information and innovation. Flows between major civilizations. The personal relationships that develop during travel create additional layers of moral complexity as loyalties conflict with survival interests. Mahmud has formed genuine friendships with individuals who may be required to betray him for their own survival, while his own choices may determine whether companions live or die based on calculations that reduce human relationships to tactical considerations. The conspiracy has been designed to force impossible moral choices on everyone involved. Religious and cultural differences provide cover for activities that transcend normal theological disputes. Buddhist monks, Islamic merchants, Christian pilgrims, and Jewish traders maintain their distinct identities while participating in operations that serve secular political objectives, requiring cooperation between groups that officially view each other with suspicion. The conspiracy uses religious differences to disguise political coordination that could destabilize the balance of power between competing civilizations. As afternoon approaches and final preparations begin for what may be their last day of travel, Mahmud realizes that survival requires making alliances with individuals whose true loyalties remain unknown while avoiding commitments that could prove fatal if circumstances change. The betrayals surrounding their expedition reflect larger conflicts between civilizations, competing for advantages that could shape the development of the medieval world. The convergence of personal survival with historical forces creates a situation where individual choices may influence outcomes that extend far beyond immediate concerns. Mahmud's decisions about whom to trust, what information to reveal, and which side to support could affect political relationships between empires, while determining whether his family's commercial network survives the reorganization of power that appears to be approaching. But the conspiracy also creates opportunities for those clever enough to recognize them while maintaining the moral flexibility necessary to profit from others' destruction. The same betrayals that threaten some participants offer advancement possibilities for others, willing to serve the interests that orchestrated these elaborate deceptions. The question becomes whether Mahmud possesses the character traits necessary to prosper in a world where loyalty has become a luxury that few can afford. As the final day's journey draws toward its conclusion, and the destination that has motivated months of travel finally appears on the horizon, Mahmud discovers that survival of the conspiracy has only qualified him for participation in revelations that challenge everything he thought he understood about the nature of international commerce, political power, and human civilization itself. The approach to their final destination reveals infrastructure that shouldn't exist according to official records of the region's development. Roads paved with techniques that anticipate later engineering advances. Bridges constructed with architectural principles that suggest mathematical understanding centuries ahead of its time. And communication systems that allow coordination across vast distances with efficiency that rivals modern capabilities. Someone has invested enormous resources in creating facilities that official governments claim don't exist. The facility they approach operates as more than a simple trading post or caravanserai. It functions as a coordination center for activities that span continents, where representatives of multiple civilizations meet to conduct negotiations, exchange intelligence, and coordinate operations that shape the political development of the medieval world. The Silk Road serves not just as a trade route, but as the communication backbone for a shadow global government that operates behind the facade of competing empires. Brother Jishnu's revelations about the true purpose of their expedition expose the monastery networks as institutions that transcend religious boundaries to serve political objectives that require coordination between civilizations officially at war. Buddhist, Christian, Islamic, and other religious organizations maintain intelligence sharing arrangements that allow prediction and manipulation of political events across multiple continents. Religious differences provide cover for political cooperation that would be impossible through official diplomatic channels. Rabbi Isaac's final briefing reveals the Rodhanite networks as financial institutions that operate parallel banking systems, allowing wealth, transfer, and credit, arrangements that make modern international finance seem primitive by comparison. Their religious identity provides protection and neutrality that enables them to serve all sides in political conflicts while maintaining loyalty to interests that transcend the boundaries of individual civilizations. The medieval global economy operates through systems that won't be officially recognized for centuries. Rahala's network represents the shadow role of women in controlling international affairs through arrangements that circumvent official restrictions while maintaining real authority over decisions that shape historical development. Female intelligence agents, merchants, and political operatives coordinate activities across multiple cultures and civilizations, creating influence networks that operate invisible to official historical records but determine the outcomes of conflicts that historians attribute to male political and military leaders. The Caravan Bashi's final revelation exposes him as a coordinator for operations that involve multiple intelligence services, working together to manage political developments according to long-term plans that span generations. The expedition has served as a mobile meeting point for representatives of various covert organizations who coordinate policies designed to prevent any single civilization from achieving dominance that could destabilize the balance of power, maintaining profitable conditions for international commerce. The technological capabilities displayed at their destination challenge fundamental assumptions about medieval scientific development. Communication systems employ principles that won't be formalized until the modern era, while manufacturing techniques produce goods that demonstrate understanding of chemistry, metallurgy, and materials science that official histories claim didn't exist for centuries. The medieval world possessed scientific knowledge that was deliberately concealed to maintain strategic advantages for those who controlled it. The political revelations at their destination expose governance structures that operate across civilizational boundaries to coordinate policies, serving interests that transcend individual empire loyalties. Chinese officials collaborate with Persian diplomats, Arab administrators, and European merchants to implement decisions made by organizations that claim authority over issues affecting multiple continentations. The medieval world operated under political arrangements that anticipated modern international institutions by several centuries. Financial systems at their destination demonstrate economic sophistication that challenges assumptions about medieval commercial development. Currency exchange operates according to mathematical principles that account for political risks, inflation rates, and market conditions across multiple regions, while credit arrangements allow financing of operations that require coordination between parties separated by continents and years. Medieval international finance possessed capabilities that modern economists struggle to fully understand. The intelligence operations coordinated from their destination reveal information gathering and analysis capabilities that rival modern institutions. Networks of merchants, religious figures, diplomats, and travelers collect data about political, military, economic, and technological developments across the known world, while analytical systems process this information to predict and influence historical developments. The medieval world possessed intelligence capabilities that enabled systematic manipulation of political events across multiple civilizations. The moral implications of these revelations force Mahmud to confront questions about the nature of individual agency in a world where historical developments result from coordination by organizations that operate outside normal political and social structures. His choices throughout their expedition have been influenced by forces whose existence he didn't suspect, while his future opportunities depend on willingness to serve interests whose objectives he doesn't fully understand. The personal transformations that result from exposure to these realities change fundamental assumptions about the nature of commerce, politics, and human relationships. Knowledge of shadow political systems, secret financial networks, and hidden technological capabilities creates obligations that transcend individual interests while offering opportunities that could establish family fortunes for generations. But participation requires moral flexibility that may fundamentally alter personal character in ways that can never be reversed. As evening approaches and final negotiations begin for arrangements that will determine his future role in these shadow systems, Mahmud realizes that the day's journey has been more than physical travel between geographic locations. It has been an initiation into realities that explain how the medieval world actually functioned beneath the surface of official historical narratives. The question becomes whether he possesses the character traits necessary to prosper in this hidden world while maintaining enough of his original identity to justify the moral costs of participation. But the revelations also expose opportunities for influence and wealth that could enable positive changes in a world where individual conscience must be balanced against the practical necessities of survival in systems designed by others for purposes that individual participants rarely fully understand. The challenge is learning to navigate these realities while preserving enough moral integrity to remain human in an environment where such considerations often become luxury items that practical people cannot afford to maintain. As the last light fades from the desert sky and Mahmud completes his transformation from simple merchant to participant in the hidden networks that truly control medieval international affairs, we witness more than just one man's journey through physical geography. We've observed the evolution of human consciousness as it grapples with the realization that the world operates according to principles far more complex and morally ambiguous than surface appearances suggest. The day's revelations expose the Silk Road not as a simple trade route, but as the nervous system of a shadow civilization that operated across political and cultural boundaries to coordinate human development according to long-term plans, whose architects remain hidden even from those who implement their decisions. Medieval merchants, religious figures, diplomats, and travelers served functions they often didn't understand while participating in a global system of unprecedented sophistication. The technologies, financial systems, political arrangements, and intelligence networks that Mahmud encountered challenge fundamental assumptions about medieval capabilities, while suggesting that human civilization has always possessed greater potential than official historical narratives acknowledge. The question becomes why such capabilities were concealed, and whether modern society has rediscovered ancient knowledge or simply returned to levels of sophistication that previous generations achieved through different methods. The moral complexities revealed through Mahmud's experiences reflect eternal tensions between individual conscience and collective survival that continue to challenge human societies across all historical periods. The medieval world's solutions to these dilemmas offer insights into alternative approaches to organizing civilization that may provide valuable perspectives for addressing contemporary global challenges. The personal transformations that result from exposure to hidden realities demonstrate how individual growth often requires abandoning comfortable assumptions while embracing moral ambiguity that challenges simplified notions of good and evil. Mahmud's journey from innocent merchant to sophisticated participant in shadow systems reflects the universal human experience of discovering that the world operates according to principles more complex than childhood education suggests. The networks of cooperation that enabled medieval civilization to function across vast distances and cultural differences offer models for international coordination that transcend the limitations of official governmental structures. The religious, commercial, demonstrate human capacity for creating functional global systems despite political conflicts and ideological differences. The intelligence and information systems that operated along the Silk Road reveal human understanding of how knowledge flows shape historical development, while demonstrating the strategic importance of controlling communication networks. Medieval approaches to managing information may offer insights for addressing contemporary challenges involving digital communication, artificial intelligence, and global coordination of technological development. The economic innovations developed by medieval merchants and financial institutions anticipated later developments while solving practical problems that continue to challenge modern international commerce. Understanding these historical solutions may provide perspectives for addressing contemporary issues involving global trade, currency exchange, and international financial coordination. But perhaps the most significant insight from Mahmud's journey concerns the relationship between individual agency and systemic forces that shape historical development. His experience suggests that meaningful participation in shaping enough moral integrity to ensure that personal power serves constructive rather than destructive purposes. The hidden history revealed through one merchant's extraordinary day offers a reminder that human civilization has always possessed greater potential than surface appearances suggest, while challenging us to consider whether our own eras, institutions, and arrangements represent the full extent of human organizational capabilities, or simply one possible approach among many that historical circumstances have made temporarily dominant. As we reflect on Mahmud's transformation from ordinary trader to guardian of civilization's hidden knowledge, we might ask ourselves what networks of cooperation and understanding we participate in without fully recognizing their significance, and whether we possess the moral courage to serve human development, even when such service requires personal sacrifices that our immediate communities may never understand or appreciate. The Silk Road continues to exist wherever human beings choose to build bridges across differences rather than walls around similarities. And the merchants who travel these modern routes carry cargo just as valuable and dangerous as anything that filled Mahmud's caravan on that extraordinary day when the medieval world revealed its deepest secrets to one man brave enough to see beyond the surface of things. Perhaps the greatest treasure brought back from any journey is the expanded consciousness that enables us to perceive possibilities that were always present but invisible until experience taught us how to recognize them. In that sense, we all travel the Silk Road whenever we choose to explore beyond the comfortable boundaries of our familiar world, carrying goods that connect different aspects of human experience, while discovering that the journey itself transforms both the traveler and the destinations that await those brave enough to venture into the unknown.